In the frozen lands of northern Europe, a culture born of the harshest of conditions would rise to alter the course of history. From the fjords of Norway to the forests of Sweden and the plains of Denmark, a seafaring people known as the Vikings would make their mark on the world in ways that still resonate today. But who were these legendary figures? What drove them to raid, trade, and explore lands far beyond their wildest dreams? This is the complete history of the Vikings, a saga of adventure, conquest, and transformation. The Viking Age did not start with plunder, but with the rise of a society forged by necessity. Scandinavia, in the early centuries of the first millennium, was a land of dense forests, jagged coastlines, and harsh winters. The people here were farmers, craftsmen, and fishermen. But above all, they were survivors. From the 6th century onward, these people lived in small, close-knit communities, often ruled by chieftains and warriors. But in the 8th century, something changed. A new age of exploration and conquest would soon begin. As climate, trade, and military technology evolved, the Vikings would be propelled into a world beyond their shores. The key to their success was the Viking Longship, a marvel of engineering. Built for speed, agility, and durability, these ships allowed the Vikings to travel great distances, from the frozen shores of Greenland to the bustling markets of Constantinople. The Viking Age began with a brutal raid on Lindisfarne, an island off the northeast coast of England, in 793. The assault on the holy monastery shocked Europe, a signal that a new force had emerged, ruthless, skilled, and ready to strike at the heart of Christendom. The Vikings, driven by a thirst for wealth and new lands, launched a series of lightning-fast raids on the British Isles. England, Ireland, and Scotland would become regular targets, their monasteries and settlements plundered for gold, silver, and slaves. But the Vikings were not just destroyers. They were also conquerors. Over time, they established strongholds in Britain, Ireland, and even parts of Francia, modern-day France. And soon, they began to settle in the lands they had once raided. One of the most significant Viking settlements was the Danelaw, a territory in England controlled by the Norsemen. In the 9th and 10th centuries, the Vikings expanded their reach. Iceland was settled around 870, a vast, untamed land that would become the cradle of Viking culture in the West. Greenland followed, discovered by the explorer Eric the Red around 985. These settlers braved the harshest of environments to create thriving communities. And then, in a bold and unprecedented move, a Viking explorer named Leif Erikson sailed even farther west. Around the year 1000, Leif and his crew arrived in a land they called Vinland, most likely located in what is now Newfoundland, Canada. This was the first recorded European presence in North America, nearly 5 centuries before Columbus. While the Vikings were making their mark in the West, they were also exploring the East. Along the rivers of Russia, Norse traders and warriors, known as the Varangians, traveled into what would become the heart of medieval Russia. These Vikings established important trading routes, most notably the route from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea. Along the way, they founded key cities such as Novgorod and Kiev, helping to lay the foundation for the powerful Kievan Rus state. The Varangians also traveled southward, reaching the Byzantine Empire. Here, many became part of the elite Varangian Guard, an honor-bound group of warriors who served as personal protectors of the Byzantine Emperor. These Vikings were feared and respected for their combat prowess and loyalty. In the early 10th century, the Vikings began to forge alliances as well as settlements. The most famous of these was the story of Rollo, a Viking chieftain who was granted land by the French king in exchange for military service. This region would become known as Normandy, named after the Norsemen who settled there. The Normans, as they came to be known, became some of the most powerful figures in medieval Europe. Rollo's descendants would soon conquer England in 1066, under the leadership of William the Conqueror, establishing a new dynasty that would change the course of English history. As the 11th century unfolded, the Viking Age began to wind down. The once pagan Norse peoples began to convert to Christianity, and with it came the end of the old ways of raiding and conquest. The rise of strong centralized monarchies in Scandinavia and Europe marked the decline of the decentralized Viking warrior society. In Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, kings began to consolidate power, and the once feared Viking warriors were now part of a changing world. As they were incorporated into larger medieval kingdoms, the Vikings' days of raids were over, but their influence endured.
The Viking Age may have ended more than 1,000 years ago, but their legacy remains. From their stunning longships to their epic sagas, the Vikings left an indelible mark on the world. Their explorations opened new frontiers, their raids shaped the course of European history, and their culture continues to inspire a fascination that endures to this day.
Today, we remember the Vikings not just as ruthless warriors, but as pioneers, traders, and settlers who changed the map of the known world. Their spirit of exploration, their mastery of the sea, and their unyielding will to survive continue to echo through the centuries, reminding us of a time when the world was wide open for the taking.
The Viking Age may have ended, but the story of the Vikings is far from over. Their legacy lives on in the tales they left behind, the lands they shaped, and the lessons they taught us about courage, resilience, and discovery.